Shalom. Call halal Yahweh Shem Abishai by Hashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors be unto the apostles and the elders of GMS. Double honors unto my fellow laborers, the Akim, the confusion of face Akim that I joined unto our ranks. All right, to the hopeful elect and the Akwaf that are listening and learning. It's going to be the second installation of the video about the Greek Empire, which was conveniently left out of Christianity. And I may have misspoken slightly, but it was obvious what I was saying, that Rome came out of Greece, not Greece out of Rome. All right, but this particular story, on the screen is taking place in Rome, but Rome was born out of Greece. And the same thing was going on in Roman society as in Grecian society. And just to prove once again, when you're in the marketplaces and when this television show or this Stars program aired, in the first season, it always told you in the beginning that it was a true depiction of Roman society. Parental advisory, warning was given. And as I said, as you see in the background here, you see people of color, okay? People of color. Because in America and in Western society, the false narrative that Rome and Greece was full of only white people. This is why it's so difficult for people to embrace the fact of the presence of the dark people, because all the relics and the information that prove that these people were there were hidden and taken out of the frame. For example, I'm grabbing the book Blacks in Antiquity. This was, and it shows you on the cover of this book how Greece went from being brown to white or to pale. All right, because a lot of the artifacts that are found throughout Greece were as such. So the presence of these people were denied in history. Hence the confusion, the racism of the so-called white man by omitting these images from history, okay? By omitting these images from history and from their narrative when they were showing their television shows and when you watch like the old Spartacus, relics don't lie, okay? So, and people that are in rulership are not going to allow these images just to be created and be prevalent and be everywhere. All right, and this is terracottas of Negroes from Egypt, largely and it says largely in the Greco-Roman. So the presence of the Israelites and the presence of Hamites and the presence of Elamites and people from the islands and things of that nature were very present, as we're going to read in the Maccabees here. All right, so I'm going to start at this is First Maccabees, the 10th chapter, and I'm going to read most of it, but kind of skip around just to get to the points. But it says, and the king of Egypt, let's put the arrow right there on this brown fella right here, okay? And it says, and the king of Egypt gathered, we just read about Negroes from Egypt, okay? And the king of Egypt gathered together a great host like the sand that lieth upon the seashore, and many ships went about through deceit to get Alexander's kingdom. Now this is talking about Alexander Balas, okay? Not Alexander of Macedonia, or who the world will call Alexander the Great. I call him Alexander the Creep or the Freak, okay? Because all he brought was homosexuality and perversions and violence, like you games, all right? Arena games, which you still see today. Because when you look at football, basketball, boxing, MMA, all it is this arena sport brought back to life yet again, okay? And it says, about through deceit to get Alexander's kingdom. And that's what Esau does, through injuries and deceit, as it says in Sirach 10 and 8. You can go read it for yourself. So they got riches and control through deceit, even against one another, because he's going to battle against another Edomite to steal another kingdom. As soon as Alexander died, his men started infighting, named themselves royals, and started infighting because Esau can never have enough, man. All right? Just like the Bible describes them, that's their nature. Verse 2. Whereupon he took his journey into Syria in peaceable manner. So as they of the cities opened up unto him, and he met him, for King Alexander had commanded them to do so, because he was under his father-in-law. Now, as Ptolemy entered into the cities, he set every one of them. He set in every one of them a garrison of soldiers to keep it, which is the nature of Esau. They conquer something, they take over something, and then they leave their armies there. Right? Hence the reason why America has armies all over Europe. You know, they have armies all over Europe, and most of the places where they've killed millions of people and dropped bombs on people. Then they set up garrisons there. Nothing has changed. All right. Now, as Ptolemy entered into the cities, he set in every one of them a garrison of soldiers to keep it. And when he came near to Azotus, they showed him the temple of Dagon, which was burnt, and Azotus and the suburbs of thereof that were destroyed, and the bodies of the burnt that he had burnt in the battle. For they had made heaps of them by the way where he should pass. Also they told the king whatsoever Jonathan had done, to the intent that he might blame him, but the king held his peace. Then Jonathan met with, so basically Jonathan was fighting for the king, for Demetrius at this point. Okay. But this Alexander dude, you know, was viewing the bodies. I mean, Ptolemy was viewing the bodies as he was coming through. Okay, and it says, then Jonathan met the king with great pomp at Joppe, where they saluted one another. And afterward, Jonathan, when he had gone with the king to the river called Eleuthurus, returned again to Jerusalem. All right. King Ptolemy, therefore, having gotten dominion of the cities by the sea into Seleucia upon the seacoast, imagined wicked counsel against Alexander. See? So he was, you know, now Ptolemy is trying to go against Alexander, man. All right. It says, whereupon he sent ambassadors unto King Demetrius, saying, come, let us make a league betwixt us, and I will give thee my daughter from Alexander. So Ptolemy wants to take his daughter, who's already married, to Alexander and give it to Demetrius, because he wants to hook up with Demetrius and do business with Demetrius, which he'll probably just stab in the back later on anyway. But he says, thou shalt reign in thy father's kingdom, for I repent and gave my daughter unto him, for he sought to slay me. So Alexander was clearly having issues with Ptolemy, and now he was trying to link up with Demetrius to go against Alexander. These Edomites were constantly at each other's throats, man, and backstabbing one another, and they still are today. Hence the reason why the EU and NATO and America is falling apart today, man. All right? All their sanctions and all those things failing, and you clicking up with this nation and clicking to come against you and backstabbing you, and all this mess is nothing changed, man. All right? It says, wherefore he took his daughter from him and gave her to Demetrius, and forsook Alexander, so their hatred was made openly known. All right, so he just basically put his daughter, making her commit adultery, man, because these people, you know, don't care about the law of the Lord, man. Then Ptolemy entered into Antioch, where he set 2 crowns upon his head, the crown of Asia and the crown of Egypt. All right, once again, Psalms 49 and 11. They name everything after themselves, man. All right. These places weren't named that before Alexander conquered. So Asia is actually named after a so-called white man, Scipio Asiaticus. All right. That's how Asia got its name. Okay. It says, verse 14, and in the mean season was King Alexander in Sicilia, because those that dwelt in those parts had revolted from him. But when Alexander heard of this, he came to war against him, whereupon the king Ptolemy brought forth his host and met him in a mighty power and put him to flight. So Alexander fled into Arabia, and there to be defended, but King Ptolemy was exalted. Now Zabdiel the Arabian took off Alexander's head and sent it unto Ptolemy. You see? And it says, King Ptolemy also died the third day after that they were into strongholds, were slain of one another. By this means Demetrius reigned in 167 years. In the same time Jonathan gathered together them that were in Judea to take the tower that was at Jerusalem, and he made many engines of war against it. All right, so the this Ptolemy had basically had Alexander killed, all right, and then he died shortly thereafter. Now Demetrius just wanted to come up and take everything, okay, and then Alexander is it? I mean, not Alexander, but Jonathan of the Maccabees, the Hasmonean dynasty, you know, was at war at this time. And it says, and certain ungodly persons who hated their own people went unto the king and told him that Jonathan besieged the tower. So you had these Israelites that were at Jerusalem that were living like these people on the screen, following the ways of the heathen. These dark people right here will more than likely would be Israelites, the representation of them all throughout Rome and all throughout Greece, with these Greek names. This was when you read Acts, I believe it's Acts 6 and 1. Let's go to it. It reads, and in those days, the number of disciples were multiplied. There arose a murmuring of the Grecians against the Hebrews because their widows were neglected in the daily ministration. All right. And then you go to Acts, was it 9 and 27 or 29, I believe. Yes. And he spake boldly in the name of Yahushua Mashiach and disputed against the Grecians, and they went about to slay him. All right. That word there for Grecian is Hellenista, G1675. And those were Israelites who made Greek their tongue. Israelites, follow the arrows, who made Greek their tongue. All right. That's why when Paul went to talk, he beckoned to speak to the people in Hebrew. All right. So you've always had the 2/3 who are going against the righteous, man. So when Jonathan was battling to get all these heathens out of Jerusalem, you had our people who were so in love with the heathen, so in love with Esau, you know, having anal sex and eating swine's flesh and doing all the wickedness, following these two. All right. Bloodlust and false gods, that they went against their own people, man. Okay. Wherefore, when they heard, he was angry, and immediately removing, he came to Ptolemy and wrote unto Ptolemy that he should not lay siege to the tower, but come and speak with him at Ptolemy in great haste. Nevertheless, Jonathan, when he heard this, commanded to be besieged it still. He besieged it still, and he chose certain of the elders of Israel and the priests, and put himself in peril, because he was like, no, Jonathan went ahead because he wanted to clean up Israel, man, and take Jerusalem back for the Israelites. All right. And he took silver and gold and a raiment and divers presents besides, and he went to Ptolemy unto the king, where he found favor in his sight. And though certain ungodly men of the people had made complaints against him, yet he entreated him as a predecessor he had done, and promoted him in the sight of all his friends. Okay. Now, when you keep reading, you'll see how Demetrius and Ptolemy traded, you know, and went against Jonathan anyway, because it clearly tells you not to trust thy enemy. But it was just to give you an overview of the life and the things that were happening in the ancient world, and how the Israelites became strangers and Gentiles and Grecians and things of those nature. All right. So with that, I hope this was an edifying lesson. Call halal Yahweh B'Hashem Abishai B'Hashem Rakak Wadash.